Evening, everybody. It is now 7:30. I'd like to call the regular city council meeting to order.
Thank you.
Today is February 11th, 2025. And Shannon, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Post?
Here.
Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Present.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Mrs. Labby? Here. Mr. Bonacci?
Here.
Mr. Barr?
We can have both. All right, at this time, Ms. Walker.
Mrs.
Walker. Ms. Walker, Mrs. Walker will lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
O God, from whom all powers comes, by those divine will all must abide. We thank you for our civil liberties and freedom, for our opportunities and our privileges. We beg of you to bless, assist, and enlighten this council and representatives of the city of Twinsburg. May we prove worthy of the confidence placed in us by our fellow citizens. May we be just and upright in their thinking, honest in all of our actions, and ever be guided by a true conscience in the legislation we propose or vote upon. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the regular council meeting from January and the public hearing from January 28th?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
All right. Mr. Fury makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Ms. Labby seconds. Any discussion on that? No? All right. Ms. Collins, would you call the roll?
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Abstain.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
All right. So the approval of the minutes passes 5-0. All right. Are there any awards or presentations this evening?
There are none.
All right. All right. Audience participation.
First, we have Jonah Pichette.
All right, good afternoon, you guys. Jonah Pichette, 11146 Heritage Drive. My reprieve is over. You guys get to hear from me again. So I appreciate your willingness to. Before I dive into Environmental Commission updates, a really quick kind of personal aside. I drive to 6 different communities, whether it's municipalities, villages, townships, on my way to work every morning. And the smoothest part of my drive is always the service department, or the city of Twinsburg, because of our service department. And I really wanted to thank them. I thank Ski every time I see him, but I wanted to make sure you guys understood how great of a job they do. Not to say the other cities do not do a great job, but we are phenomenal with our service department. You know, sometimes I've seen my wife off to work, and you know, it's kind of treacherous out there, and I'm not worried about her drive in Twinsburg. It's as she goes to where she's heading. And that's always nice to know that we have a fantastic service department. I wanted to make sure you guys were aware this resident very much appreciates our service department. And so that's my personal aside there for the night, because I could thank Ski only so much, so I wanted to make sure you guys have heard this. Now, commission updates. We had our first meeting back last week since October. It was very nice to kind of get back together with everybody. We welcomed Councilman Post as our new council representative. He got to meet with everybody, you know, kind of get to understand what our commission has been working on, what we're planning on doing. Overall, it was a very productive, very long meeting filled with a lot of conversation. A couple quick things we discussed. We discussed this new Earth Day Arbor Day event we're planning with the Parks and Rec Department, the Twinsburg Native Habitat Association, the Twinsburg High School, and I feel like I'm forgetting a commission and or a group there, but it's this new joint venture. Previously, we had our Earth Day event. Parks and Rec had last year, their inaugural Arbor Day event, and I had reached out to Director Bentonson, and I said, hey, can we combine these two events? And she was very gracious, very willing, and so now we're planning this large joint event on April 26th from 9 to 11 a.m. at the community center. And so I'm really looking forward to that. We had a lot of great conversation over that. We had a lot of conversation over composting, the ability for residents to compost. We talked about, has the city ever offered composting? Would that be something the city might be willing to do? We ultimately sort of paused that conversation But I'm glad we had it, because as I was scrolling through my social media post, Summit Metro Parks posted that now at Liberty Park Nature Center, you can compost, and residents can bring compost, courtesy of the Rubber City Reuse Company, up to the Liberty Park Nature Center. And so that's a fantastic opportunity for residents who maybe can't compost at home, to bring some compostable materials to the Nature Center. And then finally, we talked about a possible T-shirt design. As we are out and about as a commission on, at various events, Earth Day, Arbor Day, our Shred Day, we get invited to pollinator garden events. We're always out at these community events, and we see that some other commissions have T-shirts. And we feel that it would be nice for us as a commission to also have some T-shirts. And so we've talked about designs, how we'd go about acquiring these, through the Economic Development Director's budget, which I believe we're now underneath, and all of that. And then, sorry, we have one more thing. Thought I was done. We then talked about an award program. How can we award residents of the city for doing good things environmentally? We've been talking about this kind of for the past couple of years, as Councilwoman Lobby knows. But we really want to get this started this year. We're going to start with one award. I believe we're going with the Good Neighbor Award. And so at our next meeting, we're going to try to narrow down how we're going to select individuals, how we would, narrow down our nomination pool, what a winner would receive, and further decide how this is going to look. But we really believe it's important as a commission to ensure we recognize residents doing good work. I told a story about, somebody down my street who, rain, snow, sleet, hail, sunshine, they're always out picking up trash. And they don't have to. They do it simply because they care about the environment and they're a good neighbor. And they deserve to be recognized for that. And so that's sort of the basis, the idea behind that award, and that's all I have for my report, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jonah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, John. Thank you. I want to follow up that as a guy who works 30 seconds from his wife, your concern for her at the other city is correct. I could drive a golf ball to her building. It gets scary out there.
It does.
Yes, it does. All right, thank you. Is there anyone else, Ms. Collins?
There's none.
Thank you. All right, so we will move on to council communication and committee reports. How about we start at this end again, and we'll go with Ms. Walker. Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Doctor.
Thank you.
Dr. Walker?
Okay, anyway, I'm going to let Karen Labby, we were at a meeting yesterday, and Karen will present the information.
Oh, okay. Is that everything?
That's everything.
Okay,
Yes.
well then, Ms. Labby, by all means, tell us the information.
Thank you. So last night, Dr. Walker and I attended the Special Committee for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Resident Arminder Singh was sworn in by the mayor. A lot of the discussion centered around the former strategic plan, which was created before this committee. So they kind of wanted to delve into that to see how the goals were being met or not. Also, the committee was joined by Laura from Parks and Recs to discuss how a diversity day would look. She was kind of curious how to develop the program. Finally, the Jedi for the High School and Black History Month event is next Wednesday, February 19th at 4:45, and there will be committee members there with their new T-shirts on to represent. The next meeting for Jedi will be March 10th at 6 o'clock. The next finance meeting will be February 25th at 6 o'clock, and there was supposed to be a BZA meeting February 26th at 5:30. However, it was canceled due to lack of agenda items, and that is all for me today.
Thank you. I will go next here. The Public Works meeting was canceled, and the next one will be on April 8th. I did get to go to my first Environmental Commission meeting in a while, and I got to say, Jonah runs an incredible meeting. Very efficient. Everyone there is very knowledgeable on everything they're doing, and it was just so refreshing to see everyone just really involved and interested in wanting to make, an environmental difference. And it was good to be back. And I brought up some things, and they all knew the answers. Then they started quizzing me on some things. It was great. And but thank you for welcoming me, and it was great to be there. And that's all I got. Our next environmental meeting is on March 4th at 7 o'clock. So that's all I got. Thank you. Mr. Bellin?
Thank you. Good evening. I did miss our last council meeting due to work travel, so I'm very happy to be back with you this evening. As Mr. Post mentioned, the Public Works Committee meeting for this evening was canceled due to lack of agenda items. The next meeting of the Finance Committee will be on Tuesday. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got my date wrong. I said Tuesday, February 15th. Shannon, do you have that date by the chance?
25th.
25th, I apologize, at 6 PM here in council chambers. As I said, I was traveling during the last meeting, so I missed the Finance Committee meeting. I just wanted to publicly state that I'm very glad that Mrs. Labby is going to be leading the Finance Committee this year. I think you'll do a great job. So I wasn't there, but I wanted to say it. So the next meeting of the Safety Committee will be on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025 at 6 PM here in Chambers. That concludes my report for this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Mr. Bonacci?
Good evening. This evening's Public Works meeting was canceled due to lack of agenda items. Yesterday, I also attended the JEDI meeting and sat in the audience with the mayor and listened to what was coming ahead with respect to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion within our community. And I appreciate the residents that are on that special committee for driving it forward. On February 3rd, I attended Representative Sykes' elected officials breakfast in Canton, where she presented what their office is doing and what they're bringing back to the 13th district, which Twinsburg is part of. Congresswoman Sykes has brought back nearly $340 million of grants to her district. Some of those grants included improvement to some of our recreation facilities in Twinsburg. She's had a successful year of introducing and getting 2 bills through the least productive Congress in our history, and has co-sponsored 30 bipartisan pieces of legislation. She's there working for us, and in doing so, I have provided my colleagues information from that meeting and a way to help direct her office's work towards what we need via a survey link, and provided information to Rebecca relating to the grants. And they also have a way for all of us on council. The sheet that I've provided includes the Monday grant newsletter that Congresswoman Sykes prepares. Our next as mentioned, the Black History Club at Twinsburg High School is hosting that event. It's going to have some food, too, and some special performances. Last year attended, and the performances were amazing. On February 27th is our next Park and Recreation meeting in this chamber, and hopefully we'll have a good meeting for that. That concludes this evening's report.
Thank you, Mr. Bonacci. Mr. Fury?
Thank you, Mr. Post. The ARB will meet on February 20th at 6 p.m., and the CIC will meet on the 18th at 5 p.m., and that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Mayor?
Oh, thank you. Good evening.
Surprise.
Surprise. I thought you were next. I have just 2 things tonight. I'm proud to say that last week we swore in another police officer here, one of Twinsburg's own residents. And it was through our lateral hires. We've been having some really good luck with that, and I believe we have 2 more candidates in the queue to be able to bring the police department up to what the chief would like it to be. And so we're working on that, but Adam Singerman was sworn in. He comes to us with a great amount of experience. He was worked in South Euclid as a South Euclid police officer. So now he will be starting with Twinsburg, and we're happy to have him. So we welcome Adam aboard. I just want to talk about one other thing, and I don't know who's heard about this or not, but the electric costs are going to be rising. And they're going to be rising, it's significant, between 10 and 15%. And it's going to last for some time. What's going on with that? And it's not just Twinsburg. We are a NOPEC city, but it's not just NOPEC. It's a regional thing. It's affecting 12 states. This company, PJM Interconnection, they are the company that manages that, the infrastructure of the electric grid. They have, there's not enough grid for the demand for power that keeps rising and rising and rising. So they're seeing these shortfalls. The projected duration is going, like I said, 3 to 5 years that we may see these rates go up, and we don't see anything, any relief from that in sight. Again, it affects Ohio households, including Twinsburg. As I mentioned, you could see between 10 and 15% increases in electricity costs. That really translates into about 2 cents per kilowatt hour of an increase. So switching providers will not help at this point because this is affecting all providers. So again, we're an OPEC community. It's affecting them, but no matter who you're with, you're going to see this increase happen to you. So I just want to say, as the city of Twinsburg, we will remain committed to continue to monitor the situation, and we'll do what we can. You know, we'll keep in touch with NOPEC and all of the vendors out there to see what we can and cannot do, but it looks like this is going to be here for a little while, and I just wanted to put that out to the residents. I'm sure once they see it, you know, usually the phones will start ringing here, so if any of you get anybody calling you with questions, you know, feel free to, if you want to answer it, if you can't answer it, that's fine. If not, have them call in City Hall, and I'm going to make sure that everybody that answers the phones here is well-versed on what the situation is and can answer their questions. Other than that, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Pazan, you want to add anything at this time while we're at that table?
No, sir.
Okay, excellent. Are there any department head reports? Do you want to wait for the finance next time, or?
Excuse me, I would just like to let everyone know that we did hire a payroll accountant. She started yesterday. She came back today, so those are all good signs. But if you have a chance to stop in and meet her, name is Sharon. She's a lovely individual, so we're glad to have her on board.
That's
I'm glad to
awesome.
finally have someone, so.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
She started yesterday, and I already got the payroll proofs today. I said, she's good.
That's great.
I'm still doing them.
I know, Christina. I know. I'm not taking that away from
Did
you.
you let her know that the new person has to bring lunch for everybody the next day? Did you let her know that already?
I wanted her to come back, so.
Oh, that's doesn't have to be a good lunch. All right, well, let's move on to legislation. Ordinance 01-2025.
An ordinance declaring improvements to certain real property within the city to be a public purpose, describing the public improvements to be made to directly benefit those parcels, exempting such improvements from ad valorem real property taxation, requiring the owner of improvements to make service payments in lieu of ad valorem real property taxes and minimum service payments, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of such service payments in lieu of ad valorem property taxes, all pursuant to revised code sections 5709.40, 5709.42, 5709.43, and declaring an emergency.
All right, perfect. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 01-2025. May I have a second?
I will second.
Ms. Lavy seconds. Is there any discussion on that? Mr. Ferry, did you?
If we've had, excuse me, Mr. Bazana, if we've had 3 readings with an ordinance with a emergency clause,
Yes.
can we just adopt it as, or make a motion to adopt it as an emergency? Or do you have to,
That's correct.
so in one step?
In one step, and what will matter is how many votes it gets.
Thank you.
So
I just got confused.
if it gets 5,
You didn't say adopt as, I thought you were going to go through the 3 reading stuff. And
No, I wasn't.
And I
Well, we
was
already
just
did
going to
read
adopt it as an
I
emergency.
did not say to adopt it as an emergency. I would like to amend my adoption then.
Well, that's why I questioned it. I'm
No,
not trying to give you a hard
I
time.
appreciate that. No, that's good. So I'd like to amend my motion can I scrap my motion, start over?
well, I
Do
don't
make
think
an
it's been seconded.
I did
has.
second it.
Yeah.
So you can, excuse me, so you can ask the person that seconded it if you can amend it to say with, as an emergency, and then you can ask the person second whether they
Ms.
agree.
Labby, would you be okay if I amended my motion to have an emergency?
I would be okay with
That sounds great.
I would have done that different, but just, never mind.
I'm
Keep
pretty
going,
sure
keep
that's the
going,
Roberts rule.
keep
Like,
going.
you can,
Well, I'd
and
like
if she
to-
says no, then it has to be put,
Okay,
to
we're just
the
going to keep moving forward here. I'd like to make a
group.
motion then.
and the
since she
group would
said yes.
vote. Yeah, see, because at that point, it's like, why, like the motion hasn't been voted on. So I think the logic is that if she was to deny it, then when you all
Make a
voted on it.
motion to adopt the ordinance, or the motion, if make a second
make a
to
motion
adopt it.
to adopt
you go
the
to
ordinance as
discussion.
amended.
As discussion, you can amend it, so we could just, anybody could amend it at that
Yeah,
point.
you could go that route too.
Yeah,
That's correct.
that's what
But
I
you can
thought.
also just snag it before you get into the discussion.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have had to talk about it this long if we did it the other way. So let's just get going.
You're right. Making popcorn?
it. Be snagged.
Do I need to do a vote on the amendment or no? No,
No,
good. I'd
because
like
she
to
agreed.
make a, so good. So then, can we call the roll then, since we already just
Post.
fixed it? Yes.
Mrs. Labby.
Yes.
Mr. Bellin.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci.
Yes.
Mr. Fury.
Karen,
Yes.
pinky swear.
Ordinance 01-2025 passes 5-0. Good catch, Mr. Fury. Ordinance 6-0. Did I say 5-0? 6-0. No, I'm not good with those numbers. Ordinance 02-2025.
An ordinance declaring improvements to certain real property within the city to be a public purpose, describing the public improvements to be made to directly benefit those parcels, exempting such improvements from ad valorem real property taxation, requiring the owner of the improvements to make service payments in lieu of ad valorem real property taxes and minimum service payments, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of such service payments in lieu of ad valorem real property taxes, all pursuant to revised code sections 5709.40, 5709.42, 5709.43, and declaring an emergency.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 02-2025 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Walker seconds. Is there any further discussion? No? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 02-2025 passes 6-0. Ordinance 03-2025.
An ordinance declaring improvements to certain real property within the city to be a public purpose, describing the public improvements to be made to directly benefit those parcels, exempting such improvements from ad valorem real property taxation, requiring the owner of the improvements to make service payments in lieu of ad valorem real property taxes and minimum service payments, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of such service payments in lieu of ad valorem property taxes, all pursuant to revised code section 5709.40, 5709.42, 5709.43, and declaring an emergency.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 03-2025 as an emergency. May I have a second?
A second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Is there any further discussion? All right, Shannon, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ordinance 03-2025 passes 6-0. Ordinance 04-2025.
An ordinance declaring improvements to certain real property within the city to be a public purpose, describing the public improvements to be made to directly benefit those parcels, exempting such improvements from ad valorem real property taxation, requiring the owner of the improvements to make service payments in lieu of ad valorem real property taxes and minimum service payments, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of such service payments in lieu of ad valorem property taxes, all pursuant to revised code sections 5709.40, 5709.42, 5709.43, and declaring an emergency.
All right, thank you. I'd like to make a motion at this time to adopt ordinance 04-2025 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Collins, if you'd call the roll, please.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 04-2025 passes 6-0. Ordinance 05-2025.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Formtech Incorporated to provide tax incentives under the terms and conditions of the Twinsburg occupancy program.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 05-2025. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Fury seconds. Is there any further discussion? All right, this one is not on an emergency. Ms. Collins, if you call the roll.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 05-2025 passes 6-0. Ordinance 18-2025.
An ordinance accepting the bid of Parent Asphalt Company for the 2025 road improvement project and declaring an emergency.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 18-2025 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fury seconds. The reason for the suspension of the three reading rule is we want to get into these agreements for the construction as soon as possible. Is there any discussion on the suspension of the three reading rule? Collins, would you call the roll?
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
All right, so the suspension of the three reading rule passes 6-0. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 18-2025 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any further discussion?
This is $1.95 million for our road program with Perry Asphalt. Worked for us multiple times. We do this annually. So thank you.
Thank you. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
All right, so ordinance 18-2025 passes 6-0 as an emergency. Resolution 19-2025.
A resolution expressing the intent of the city of Twinsburg in 2025 to sell by internet auction personal property, including motor vehicles and other property referenced in revised code section 721.15, which are no longer needed for the public use or are obsolete or unfit for the use of the city, for the use for which they were acquired, and declaring an emergency.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place Resolution 19-2025 in its third and final reading. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. The reading is so we can continue, the reason for the suspension of the three reading rule is so we can continue this program without any discussion. We do this annually. Any other discussion? No? Shannon, call the roll, please.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
All right, so the suspension of the three reading rule passes 6-0. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 19-2025 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Bellin seconds. Any discussion on Resolution 19-2025?
Just a point of clarification. In years past, we have had, and it's probably not in this piece of legislation, but there's been a list of the auctioned item. Is that just in the future? So this particular piece of legislation is allowing us to continue with the auctions?
This is for internet auctions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But even when we did the internet auction, we had a list of what we were auctioning off, the trucks, the,
I think Shannon has.
So in the past, we had done set times throughout the
Okay.
year for auctions. This is continuous. So instead of something
Okay.
sitting in the basement for 6 months, getting on a list and then passing it by council, when it hits the basement, if it's no longer needed by any department, then it can automatically go to auction without having to wait
Yeah,
every
no,
time to get to council.
Yeah.
If you want the list, that's something the service.
That's fine.
department-
I just wanted to make, I know in years past, we've seen the list. That's
Yeah,
fine.
the revised
Okay.
code allows us to do that continuous auction as long as we use internet auctions.
And the revised code also states it has to be done annually, so you'll see this every January, February
Great point.
timeframe.
That was an excellent question. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Post.
Yes.
Mr. Bellin.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci.
Yes.
Mrs. Labby.
Yes.
Mr. Fury.
yes.
All right, Resolution 19-2025 passes 6-0 as an emergency. Ordinance 2025.
An ordinance extending a moratorium on accepting for filing and consideration and/or issuing occupancy permits for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable the cultivation, processing, distribution, or sale of recreational marijuana for a period not to exceed 3 months and declaring an emergency.
All right, so at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 2025 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. The reason for the suspension of the three reading rules is because it's going to expire on February 13th. And any other comments, concerns? Shannon, call the roll, please.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
All right, so the suspension of the 3 reading rule passes 6-0. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2025 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any discussion on this?
Yeah, Mr. Post, we had some discussion during caucus about, actually quite a bit of discussion about this particular ordinance. At this time, there's currently no entity that has approached the city of Twinsburg from the cultivation standpoint. Recently, yeah. There's nothing current, and so extending this particular moratorium will not affect anything in flight. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for that. Shannon, call the roll, please.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 2025 passes 6-0 as an emergency. We're going to pass on ordinance 2025, and brings us to unfinished business, new business, or miscellaneous. I want to start at this end of the table this time. Mr. Fury.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to recognize the mayor and his staff. I got this mailer this week, Together Twinsburg. It's the second issue. And I just really am impressed with the way that this is done, and I think it's important that we do a newsletter like this, at least on a quarterly basis, if not, bi-monthly. For 20 years, there was a newspaper at the end of my driveway, and half the time we could read it, but it gave information to our residents on a more timely manner on some things that were going on here. And I know we have Together Twinsburg's website. We've got a lot of ways to get research and get information. But I just think this is a really well-done mailer, and I congratulations, Mayor. Nice job.
Thank you, Bill.
I
And it is
also,
the staff, like you said. I do want to give the shout out to them too, Mark and Jenny and everybody involved, the department heads that, give their reports and things like that. They do, everybody, it's a combined effort, so thank you.
Sure. And I wanted just to, I was listening to your comments on electricity. And, if residents want to see what's available now, if you just simply Google Apple to Apple Electric, you'll go to the PUCO website, which is Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. And you'll see all kinds of different deals, and you can sort it and compare. But right now, I would look at fixed pricing only. If the price is going up, you don't want to be on a variable, you'd want to be on a fixed. You can get up to a 36-month fixed price, just under 0.08 per kilowatt. And you can get a 12-month fixed right now for 0.0739. So there are options there. There's variables and fixed. Some have a monthly fee, which you do not want to have to add on top of what that service is. But the phone numbers and everything are there. If anybody has questions, just call me or email me, and I'll help you, because it can be confusing. But if you wanted to look at long-term rates, they are available now, and I'm going to look now prior than waiting till they go up. So, and that's all I have this evening, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Bonacci.
Last week, Chief Mason invited me to a couple events. He invited all of us to a couple events, and want to apologize for those that were recognized, sworn in, et cetera, that I missed the events due to other things like a job. And it's unfortunate that sometimes I can't get to everything that I want to, but I want to recognize our new police officer and the other folks that were recognized for amazing work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bellin.
Just one thing this evening. The Twinsburg Police Department social media pages, I don't know who's running them. They are phenomenal. They are witty. They are informative. Again, I have no idea who it is, but just please pass along my thanks and appreciation for whoever's running them, because they're doing a wonderful job. And that's not to suggest that the other ones are not, but specifically the police department is doing a great job. Nothing further, thank you.
So you like the walk like a penguin?
I do.
Yes, we all walked like penguins. That was funny. I don't have anything. Mrs. Labby?
Nothing further for me.
Mrs. Walker?
I just want to say that I was invited to the First Congregational Church in Twinsburg, and I'll be speaking there this coming Sunday at 12 noon. So
Oh, nice.
for those of you who attend church, or if 12 noon is just the right time for you, please come. Thank you. That's all I have.
Nice. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mentioned your name.
Mr. Scafidi?
I have nothing further tonight, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
That's how I get my speaking engagements at church. I mention your
Santa,
name.
would you like to add anything still?
No, sir.
Going around the room, Jonah?
Nothing further, thank
No,
you.
anything from IT? No? Great, okay. Ms. Collins, anyone over there?
No? Happy belated, Mrs. Labby.
Hope so.
What'd you say?
Happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Happy belated birthday. All right, so this time, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Scott Barr from our council meeting. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Shannon?
Any- What?
Waving at you.
There's a motion.
There's also a motion on the agenda that needs, before we adjourn. You could, let's continue with this one. I just don't want that one to get forgotten.
Oh. All right, perfect. Thank you.
I seconded Scott.
Mr. Fury, second. Any conversation on that? Great. Shannon, call the roll?
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-0. He is excused. We have a couple other motions here. Motion number one, I'd like to make a motion that the city council does not oppose the transfer of liquor permit from Twinsburg Entertainment LLC, DBA basement units A, B, and C, and patio to Twinsburg Pub LLC, doing business as Basement Sports Bar and Grill, Twinsburg units A, B, and C, and patio, located on Darrow Road, and authorize the clerk to submit the form to the Ohio Division of Liquor Control. Questions, does this need to be on an emergency?
No.
Motion.
It's just
It's a motion?
I second your motion.
All right, Mr. Fury seconds the motion. Any discussion? Shannon, if you call the roll?
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-0. Thank you. And now, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss matters pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G13, personnel, employment of public employee or public official, and pending litigation, and to conference with an attorney for the city concerning pending court action. May I have a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Bellin seconds. Any conversation, discussion? Let's call the roll, please.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
All righty. Motion passes 6-0. We will adjourn the meeting after we are done with executive session.